So now that we've discovered that the primal brain controls and regulates our emotions, aggressions, our triggers, our trauma, this is the part of the brain that is responsible. It is the part of the brain that holds memory for all those things. We have discovered that is what's going on in the system, in neuroscience, in your brain right now. We've discovered that you've been learning to survive. We've also discovered that fear is a chemical reaction that happens when adrenaline and cortisol are provided to your brain in order to prepare your body or readiness for danger and trigger. We've discovered that. So we've also discovered that we have the prefrontal cortex, which is the frontal lobe, and that is doing all the things you need to do. The part that the frontal lobe is responsible for self-expression, art, reason, morals, our sense of being is centered in the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is also the one that's responsible for making everything come alive. So, like my podcast, I'm going to share a short story because when I wanted to start my podcast, this is my way of being. This is who I am. I love to share. I love to express. I love to research. I love to write. And I feel like when I'm caught in the middle of just doing everything I love, I want to find a balance in between where I can share those things with everybody and just provide solutions. At least that's how I feel. Provide solutions, give my peace of mind. It is my truth. It doesn't have to be your truth, but it's an expression that I'm setting out of how I am learning to alchemize and go through life. So when I share these things, they really come from the heart. And I'm sharing this because when I started this podcast, I was in a state of fear. I feared being seen. I feared just what might come from it. I feared being judged. I feared putting myself on the line. But then I had to understand what that was because to me, I felt very conflicted. I knew I loved to talk about all these things I'm discussing on this podcast. So I didn't understand why I felt fear. And I feel like I had to dig in and just research on why that was what I was feeling. And coming to my research, I found that fear is actually a chemical reaction, like I mentioned, and sometimes it might be made up of emotions that we might not understand and emotions that we haven't yet learned to acknowledge or identify. Because if you've noticed, fear can also be misinterpreted with excitement. We feel the same chemical reaction when we fear and when we're excited. So I had to transcend this emotion. I had to find out what is behind fear. And these were my findings, these are my truth. If you want to come on board and take these truths and see what works for you, please feel free. But these are my truths. And fear is nothing but a state of being. It's a chemical reaction that happens when your body is in readiness for something. It might be danger. It might be what you identify as danger. It might be what you identify as a trigger. It might be what you identify as something that is going to harm you. And our prefrontal cortex, it only picks up from the primal brain. So if your primal brain is designed to find fear in so many things because you've only ever learned to survive, it means your prefrontal is only going to pick up on those negatives as well. But when we learn to acknowledge and see our human nature and see how everything that we're made up of is a way that we've learned to survive, we change our perspective. We change the way we come across fear and how we acknowledge and how we meet fear with peace, compassion, and love. So that's why I am such a fan of mental health because it's only through mental health and self awareness when you activate your prefrontal cortex that you're able to have a wide reasoning and understanding of all these things. And I am so grateful. And I just want to discuss that the prefrontal cortex is responsible for magnifying basically everything going on up there. It's responsible for magnifying everything going on up there. So if your survival instincts are sending negative signals to your prefrontal cortex, I am sorry. This is the reason why it's been hard for you to just live the life you want to live, manifest the things you want because your mind is distorted. Your primal brain that is responsible for your being is distorted. It needs to be regulated. It's only ever learned to survive. It needs to learn how to feel safe because even animals in nature can only rely on their instincts to stay alive and to stay safe. So why can't we rely on our instincts? I love this series on Netflix. It's called The Sound of Nature. It's so amazing and it just gets into nature and how animals in nature learn to survive based on their instincts. They can't talk, they can't communicate, but they can only communicate through their instincts and sound. So as human beings, we are on the same level, but a little higher because we're human beings. We're the highest on the collective. So our prefrontal cortex is responsible for translating the ways that we have learned to survive. And if these ways are not regulated by self-awareness, we are in danger to live a life that is only going to be on survival.